Welcome to a new video. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about what some refer to as the Alehouse Dagger or a Basket-Hilted Parry-Dagger. Now this weapon under this name became much more popular because of an article of Paul Wagner on the topic, which is still linked on the Stoccata School of Defense homepage. I will put the link down below because there's all the research on the topic. What the Alehouse Dagger is, where it comes from, and also some references, historical references where it comes from. So essentially, the Alehouse Dagger can be two things. It's sometimes also called a bum dagger, a reeve dagger, a lowland parry dagger. So you can find different names, modern and old names for it. But Alehouse Dagger or bum dagger seems to be the go-to term from back then in the 16th and 17th century, where it is first mentioned. So one version of this weapon is that you have kind of a classic parry dagger, but and the guard is on the outside of the hand. So like the sail guard parry daggers for rapier, you hold the dagger like a parry dagger with a flat to the outside, and you have hand protection here. The other version is a full basket, and this, I think, the only picture we have of it is kind of in James Miller from 1737. He's showing a backsword and basket-hilted dagger, and there it is a full basket hilt, so like this one, okay, like a full basket hilt, and you hold it like a basket-hilted broadsword, okay, with this handshake or hammer grip, and not with this kind of thumb grip, the flat, like a typical parry dagger, because you now have hand protection all around. And I'm not sure if these kind of daggers were ever worn for civilian purposes. I don't know. Or, I mean, such a half basket dagger seems much more practical for all day life. The historical examples we can see which survived are mostly these having kind of this sail guard or basket hilt on one side only, and full basket hilt. I came across one half basket, so like this one cut in half. But besides Miller's depiction, and that we know that the prize fighters in the early 18th century fought with backsword and dagger, except that I don't know any reference on full basket hilts. However, I personally prefer the full basket hilt for many reasons, especially because I think from the technique it can be used much more better together with the backsword in a fight. And of course, a stage gladiator would not have any thought have to think about to carry this around in all day life, because he used it for his prize fight and not for a self-defense weapon. But in the 16th and 17th century, when the Alehouse dagger was a self-defense weapon, then of course you had it ready. You were wearing it on your belt. Most descriptions say behind your back, and then a full basket hilt is a little bit unpractical, to be honest. I already showed some videos about how this was used in companion with a backsword in a fight. I also have a lesson series on that, an ongoing lesson series. But today I wanted to talk about this as a weapon on its own, because we know that in the 16th and 17th centuries, the references tell us that these were used in the alehouse. This is the weapon you would take with you into the pub, and if you expect some kind of brawl or quarrel, then you have this ready to defend yourself. So a very big dagger. The references call it even like short sword or like shorter cutlass. So longer than the average dagger or parry dagger you are used to. And this makes totally sense, because you want to have something in between a dagger and a cutlass which is big enough to defend against swords and all kind of other weapons, but you also want to have something that is short enough to be carried around and pulled in a crowded alehouse and be used in a pub brawl. So the lengths can vary from around 50 to 60, maybe over 60, nearly 70 centimeters, but everything longer than that, I would say, is not very useful to be used as a parry dagger, as a one-handed weapon or single weapon, as a short cutlass. Of course, that is perfect, but to have it in your offhand and use it together with your backsword or broadsword, then it should not be longer than around 65 centimeters in total length, in my personal opinion. So I have two examples here. This one is my training dagger. It's a shortened armor class sword, an old armor class sword, backsword, which was shortened. This has a total length from, I think, 58 centimeters. Okay, total length, with the blade being like 43 centimeters. It has a full basket hilt with a pommel, and the point of balance, of course, is somewhere in the basket. So it's not very top heavy, but however, this is still very good to be used as a solo weapon. And also we have these black fencer training synthetics, Parry-Daggers, Alehouse Daggers, which work quite well in sparring. How would I fight with it? Well, I will show some examples of how we fought with dagger versus dagger, and also dagger versus spadroon in some examples. Generally speaking, you don't have to do anything much different from when you're using a cutlass or a backsword. All the parries, you have all the cuts, you have all the thrusts, but of course, because the weapon is much shorter, and of course because of the context, fighting in a more enclosed environment, then of course the offhand comes much more in handy, and you have to keep some things in mind. So an example, what I think worked quite well was that you do against a thrust when really somebody tries to stab you, really, like not like a thrust forward, not like a fencing thrust, but really wants to go in and stab you. A good way is to shift back and to use the sword and the offhand in kind of a cross parry. So the sword slices and parries the incoming thrust and the arm, and you use your forearm to support that, because if you don't do that, such kind of a stab can be too hard to be just parried with a weapon. Then of course you can use quick cuts to the forearm. So if the opponent has not a basket-hilted dagger but an open-hilted weapon, of course you can attack the hand and the wrist directly. But if he's also using an Alehouse dagger, then of course you can try, like with a broadsword, to come on the forearm. And also you can come to the head, but you have to keep in mind that you are quite closer. So again, with using traversing footwork and going to the side, then you can go for the head. Essentially, you're using this like a short broadsword or a cutlass. Again, what you can put in is that you have close quarters, you have much less space to move, and therefore you can use much more the offense. So all these disarms and elbow locks and close quarter techniques we train with the broadsword, they are even more important for this. So if you want to train with this, I would train two things. First of all, just do kind of parry riposte fencing. So try to make a game out of it. Everybody gets, two guys get these Alehouse daggers, and you just start to fence with it and try to stay in distance and to out-fence your opponent. And the second thing is what you can do is that your opponent is allowed, and you also to search more for the enclosing and commanding techniques. So you go in, you try to get a hold, you try to parry incoming hard stabs, and you try to get a hold and to get control, and then use this in the closest quarter to stab and to cut. And then of course the third option is that you should train how to fight against it against another sword. So like fighting with this against a spadroon or a backsword or even a pike or whatnot. Whatever you want to try out, you use this and try out to use it against a weapon which has a reach advantage. Speaking of reach, again, I wanted to show you here. This is my sharp one, which I made myself somehow. So it's just the Hanwei broadsword, which I shortened to become an Alehouse daggerish cutlass. So the blade is double-edged and much broader. It's a bit longer, just a little bit. It's still short enough to be used as an offhand dagger, especially because the weapon, the blade, is very flat. So it is light enough. Maybe I will shorten the handle here a little bit so that I take away this bar. So I have a little bit of better balance and a smaller handle or smaller basket hilt. maybe I will do that. But generally speaking, this is the biggest length I would use for an Alehouse dagger or a Basket-Hilted Parry-Dagger. So this is kind of, I would say, kind of average, and the other one is a little bit the slightly longer version. But still, if you have a blade which is not too heavy, this one is quite broad, and you can see it's a little bit like a short Dusak cutlass Alehouse dagger. I wanted to have a sharp one which I can use like a cutlass, but also which I can use as a parry dagger, and this works quite nice with my sharp backsword for solo exercises. So I wanted to show you this quickly, and now we'll get into some sparring footage where you can check out the techniques we used so far in our experimental sparring. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.